Oh, would you look at all these parts? Yeah, I already got into them. That box is empty. New main bearings. That's the Turbo 400. That's going in this, equipped with a trans brake. Valve springs. So welcome back to the channel, guys, and if you've been following along, you know I bought a set of cheap eBay heads. Yesterday I went ahead and I ground out all the slag or imperfections that were inside the heads, and now today I'm going to lap some valves and install the parts and see if they all fit. Tag along. Alright guys, so my honest review on these heads is that if you want to buy them, go for it. I don't see any problem with them except for removing the casting slag and then lapping in your valves. That's the only two things that you're really going to have to do. And then you got the complete assembly, which I got to find my Loctite, and I'll show you how these things go together. But so far, I do recommend them. For the price, you really can't beat them as long as you're willing to put in the work. And so for lapping them, I modified my lapping tool. This used to have two ends on it. Is what I did is I cut it in half. I drilled a hole as straight as I could with the tools that I got, and then I pressed in just a 1/4 inch shank bit into it. That's going to get chucked up in the drill like that, and then it suctions to your valve. So now I'm going to take a bunch of time today and lap these. And it's like this. I'm going to do that for all 16 valves. I want to get it nice and seated in there. And if you've never done it before, this is what you're looking for. I'll get a close-up of this. Wipe off the compound. And is what you're going to want to do is right in here on your valve, you're going to start to see some different markings. And is what you want is you want that valve, that mark, that different colored mark that's gray, to start to hit to the center of this beveled area. You don't want it at the top. Let me grab a regular valve. So here's just an intake valve, but you can see there's no line there on it. You look at the difference between the two. One has a line and one doesn't. Hopefully that shows up on the camera. I can't tell if it will or not, but we're going to go ahead and get these lapped in and then install them. So this is the lapping compound by Permatex that I'm using. Just a little bit on there. That's kind of a lot of it. Now you can slide your valve in there. If you really want to take the time and do this by hand, go for it. You probably get a little bit better of a job out of it, but for the sake of time, and my time is limited, I'm using a drill. So you just want to pull it in and out ever so much, so that way it moves the lapping compound around. I wish this stuck a little bit better to the valve. but it doesn't take much, and then you want to pull it out every so often. Wipe it off and see where those marks are at. So this one you can kind of see that it's... I'm pretty happy with where this one is. Those marks all the way around tell me that it's going to seat well, and you can see that it's starting to move to the center of the valve. You don't want to go past this ridge right here, because then the valve's going to start falling into the piston, or into the intake runner, or the exhaust runner. You don't want that. So maybe some of you guys caught my last video or the video before that, but I want to explain real quick why I took the time to remove all the casting slag in these heads. If you haven't seen it, Richard Holdner does a great video on comparing cheaper cast heads to CNC ported aluminum heads, and you can see like the CNC ported ones made like 80 horsepower more on the same setup, but one thing that he didn't show was that he didn't do was show the actual intake runners. But I caught a glimpse of the intake runners, and it looked like the cast one still had a lot of casting slag in it. Let me show you why. So let's say that you cut the head in half lengthwise, and you can see down the intake runners, and this is the intake runner. And right here is the valve opening. Well, the air comes in this way, but as it's hitting casting slag all along the sides like this, and in here, this is actually taking the air and moving it like that and like that, which is compressing the air in here. All this air right here gets compressed. Gets compressed right in there. When it gets compressed, it's actually restricting flow. So I'd love to see Richard Holdner redo the test after he were to go through and take out all the slag inside the cylinder heads. So, because dollar for dollar, horsepower for horsepower, on a budget build like I'm doing, I would choose these heads all day long over cast heads. Because these, we already know these flow better than stock cast heads. Maybe probably still in the range with Vortex. If you have Vortex, I wouldn't bother spending the money. But any other cast head, and you want to change out heads for a budget, these eBay ones are the ones to use. So once you have it centered, the lapping and centered in on the beveled part of the valve like that, you're pretty much good to go. Clean out all your lapping compound inside of the compression or the runner, and then go ahead and install your valve. So when you're installing these, the valve comes in. You have your base plate. Then you got your valve seal right here. And that goes on. I get it down there, and then I take a deeper socket and just make sure that it's on there all the way. Then we got our spring and our assembly. I gotta go grab the retainers for this. That's gonna go in there like that. We're gonna compress that down. This is all the easy part, it's just time consuming. that set up there on like that. And you want to run it down and tighten it up. Make sure everything is on there. Make sure everything is on even. They do make a head table that actually holds everything together. I don't own one because I'm a cheapskate, and chances are you're doing this yourself, you probably don't own one either. You don't have to have every single tool in the box just to be able to get something done. So now is what we're going to do is we're going to compress this so the valve stem comes up over that, and then we're going to put our keepers in it. The parts that actually keep the valve in place are these little guys right here. They're very small, they're easy to get lost, so I recommend keeping them in the packaging until you're absolutely ready to install the valve. Oh. I keep on hearing motorcycles pass. I can think of somewhere else I'd rather be than doing this, but this is fun too. And yeah, I bought the $12 spring compressor. Off Amazon. Get the camera just a little bit better. I don't know exactly how far I got to run this down. I've never done this before. So you're learning with me. And then they go. This part makes a wedge, and the narrow side goes in. We're gonna lean this down so I can work on it better. Oh.
He's awake.
And after it's all installed, that's how it looks. So it's kind of tricky to get these retainers in here, but for my first one, it didn't go so bad. So here's something interesting that I found. After putting in the rocker stud, I can feel down into the intake port, and I feel the bottom side of the rocker stud is protruding into the intake port right up in here. Not much, but just a little bit. I wonder if I could take that off, because that's going to disrupt airflow. Well, and just like that, we got our new cylinder heads all assembled. They're just about assembled. I gotta do the rocker studs. I gotta look up the torque specs on those. I don't think I have a big enough socket to fit over them to actually put them in, so I'm probably gonna have to buy one. Remember guys, this is just a budget build. I'm not guaranteeing that these heads are gonna be spectacular or God's gift to Earth, but from what I can see, with a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, you can clean them up and probably get some pretty good power out of them. Like I said, I'm already doing good because I'm into it for 650 bucks. I could have bought a new set of cast heads or had the cast heads that I do have rebuilt, and that probably would have put me, I probably would have been into it about $300 to have those ones rebuilt. But then they'd still be as heavy as they all are. I could have had them port and polished too. I'd probably be into them about $600 then. But still, they're cast heads and they're heavy. My goal is the lighter the truck, the faster it'll go. So hopefully with the weight savings, that'll help me hit the 1250 mark. And I think the next video we're going to do is a budget breakdown and of where I'm at and how much I have left in the budget. Along with probably starting to assemble the small block. I want to go over some numbers for what I'm going to gap the rings to, because I do foresee in the future that this engine sees nitrous for the track, just because I've never done it and I want to see what it's like. Along with that, we got a Turbo 400, and it has a trans brake in it and a complete manual shifter, so now it's park, reverse, neutral, 1 2 3 instead of 3 2 1. But no, I'm really satisfied with the way these heads turned out. Assembling them wasn't too hard. The only thing that I did see that I did freak out on them was in one of the exhaust valves here and a couple of the intakes. I could all of a sudden, after lapping them and installing them, I could see daylight. Well, if you have that problem afterwards, just go ahead and tap the back side right here on the top of the valve with a mallet, a rubber one I recommend, and let it come back and it'll finish seating itself. And that was the issue. I might have had like a little bit of the grit from the rubbing or the lapping compound in there, but they came right around and they sat just fine. I couldn't see any more daylight. Gosh, I really wish I had a good way to seal these heads up and do like a leak test on them to make sure they are sealing good, but I just don't. Or at least not at the moment. I guess if I'll know, I could do it after they're installed on the engine. Unless if I made like a complete backing plate to go across here, sealed it up with a head gasket, then I could use the spark plug trick. That's too much work for what I'm doing. We're either gonna find out right away if they don't work or don't work. I took some measurements of my transmission. It's about an inch shorter than what my original one was, but that doesn't mean that the mounting points are in a completely different location, so I might be able to get away with using my stock bracket or transmission cross member, which that would be cool. And I think the drive shaft's going to fit too, because it's really tight in there with the old transmission, and I think it's going to fit with the new one just being an inch difference. Plus the 350 is going to be possibly pushing the motor back an inch, so we'll see. Eventually when I do the 8.8 swap, it's all going to have to change. But other than that, it's coming together. It's starting to really come together pretty good. And in the next video, we're going to probably be gapping the rings, and I'll show you how to do that for the nitrous and what charts you use and look up. But other than that, if you're interested in seeing how these heads actually perform at the strip, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And if you like what you see here, go ahead and tell your other buddies about it. That'd be cool. And hopefully maybe like the next 2 or 3 weeks we can actually get it to the track and see what it does compared to its original state. Anyway guys, thanks for watching.